You wake up in the middle of the night. The silence in the room is heavy, almost suffocating. You turn your head to the side and notice something disturbing. Even though it is a different person, the feeling is identical. The same emptiness in your chest, the same weight on your shoulders, the same question echoing in your mind. How did you end up here again? Nietzsche would call this the eternal return, the repetition of a moment that refuses to die. Imagine someone telling you right now that this moment, this exact one, will repeat forever. That every detail, the chill in the air, the tense breathing, the knot in your stomach, will come back endlessly, like a cycle without end. Could you endure it? Or is the mere thought enough to crush your will? Nietzsche said the eternal return is the greatest test of your life. Imagine that every choice, every word, every gesture must be repeated eternally, without changing a thing. What you feel now, the person by your side, the way you love, all of it will return, again and again, like a circle that never breaks. Think of the relationships that marked your life, the passionate kisses that seemed to promise eternity, the fights that felt like they tore your skin from the inside, the goodbyes that left a taste of iron in your mouth. Now imagine that every detail must be relived not once, but infinitely. Can you bear it? Nietzsche was not speaking of punishment. He was speaking of revelation. The eternal return exists to ask you, are you living in a way you could endure repeating every moment? Or are you merely enduring a life you secretly wish to forget? In Loves That Wound, this question becomes even more brutal, because you already know the answer. How many times did you believe it would be different? How many times did you swear that this time it would not hurt? But the cycle started again, as if an invisible hand pushed you toward the same abyss. Nietzsche believed that only those who can say yes to their entire life, with everything it brings, are truly free. But what about you? Can you say yes to the love you have now, knowing it will repeat eternally? Or does the thought already awaken a silent no inside you? Perhaps this is the hardest question to face. If the love you live cannot be repeated forever, is it really worthy of being in your life today? And here arises the next dilemma. Why, even knowing this, do you remain drawn to the same kind of love? Why, instead of breaking free, do you always end up returning to the same storyline? Have you ever felt that quiet hope when someone new enters your life? Your heart races, your eyes shine, and you think, this time will be different. But little by little, you realize it is not. The words change, the voice is different, but the wound is the same. As if, behind every new face, there is always the same shadow. Nietzsche would say this is not bad luck. It is not blind fate. It is you, repeating what you have not yet transformed. The eternal return is not only about the universe spinning in circles. It is about you, without realizing it, choosing the same paths because you have not dared to create a new one. You fool yourself into thinking that the new will save you, that someone will come and erase the mistakes of the past. But what happens? You end up performing the same play again, only with different actors. It is as if life were testing you, asking, will you keep running away, or will you finally learn to transform this story? The truth is harsh. You do not escape the patterns you carry within yourself. You project them, and they return to you. It is like walking down a circular road. Every time you think you have moved forward, you find yourself back at the same point. The scenery changes, but the feeling is identical. Nietzsche saw in this cycle an invitation to creation. As long as you believe the problem lies only in the other, you remain trapped. But when you realize the repetition is born inside you, you also discover that you can recreate it. The question is, will you have the courage? Because, deep down, what hurts is not only the other. It is the silent recognition that you yourself opened the door for pain to enter. And if you go on living this way, it will enter again. So tell me, how long will you keep accepting this illusion of the new, which always reveals itself to be the same? Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, that inner force that drives us to grow, to create, to expand life. It is the flame that makes you rise even after falling. But what happens when you hand over that force to someone who extinguishes it? When, instead of expanding, love shrinks your soul? Have you noticed how certain loves do not add anything? They only drain you? At first, they seem intense, full of promises. But little by little, you feel smaller. Your voice grows quieter. Your dreams get locked away in the back of a drawer. The light that once was yours begins to fade. Nietzsche would say that, at this point, it is no longer love. It is betrayal of yourself. Because true love should multiply your power to live, not reduce it. When you give yourself to someone who suffocates your energy, you are denying what is most precious, your very will to be. But why do you do this? Perhaps out of fear of loneliness. Perhaps because you believe that any presence is better than the void. But have you noticed how high the price of that fear really is? Because, in the end, you do not just lose the other. You lose yourself. The question Nietzsche would place before you is simple and brutal. What you call love, is it not, in truth, fear in disguise? A disguise that imprisons instead of setting you free? And here comes the provocation. If life placed you before the choice of repeating this love forever, would you accept it? Or is the very thought already too suffocating? The next step is even more disturbing. What if it is not the other who chooses for you? What if it is you yourself, unconsciously, who decides to suffer, always choosing, without realizing it, the same kind of pain? Nietzsche never denied the value of pain. On the contrary, he said it is through pain that life intensifies. Suffering can be a teacher. It can shape you. It can awaken strengths that were asleep. But there is a fine line between the pain that builds and the pain that only corrodes. And here you need to ask yourself, in your relationships, on which side of the line are you? Have you noticed how often you remain in situations that clearly hurt you? As if something inside you believed that enduring a little longer is proof of love. As if silently bearing it were a sign of strength. But is it, really? Nietzsche would say no. He did not believe in a life meant to crawl. For him, to live was to affirm one's own power, to say yes to what expands. So why do you keep saying yes to what diminishes you? Perhaps because there is a certain addiction to familiar suffering. It feels almost comfortable. You already know how it works. You recognize the gestures, the words, the silences. It hurts, but it is predictable. And the predictable feels safer than the unknown. But the truth is, in this process, you're not growing. You are only repeating. Suffering in this way does not strengthen you. It only weakens you, until your will becomes confused with resignation. And here arises the darkest question. Do you choose this kind of love precisely because you do not believe you deserve another? Nietzsche would remind you, life is always testing you. The eternal return asks if you could endure reliving each moment. So look at the love you are in, or at the one that has marked your memory. If you had to live that pain eternally, would you still accept it? If the answer is no, then the suffering you live is not a path of transformation. It is a prison, and every prison, no matter how familiar, demands courage to be abandoned. In the next step, the question becomes even more intimate. Could it be that what you call destiny is nothing more than the reflection of what you avoid facing within yourself? If until now you have realized that the suffering you choose is not a path of growth, but a prison, then you must take the next step. Because Nietzsche would say, what you call destiny may be nothing more than the reflection of what you avoid facing within yourself. Subscribe now and stay with me, because in the next moment we will cross this mirror, and perhaps you will discover that the real enemy was never outside. Nietzsche warned, he who fights with monsters should be careful not to become one. This sentence is not only about external battles. It speaks of the silent war inside you. In relationships, every partner who wounds you is more than just presence. They are a mirror, a reflection of the parts you stubbornly reject in yourself. That is why the pain returns. That is why you feel that, no matter how many times you try, you always end up facing the same scene. You believe you're choosing different loves. But deep down, you are always choosing the same story. Because as long as you do not confront the shadow you carry, it will continue to show itself in the form of people who hurt you. Nietzsche called this destiny, but not in the sense of something written in the stars. For him, destiny is what you are, at the core, and from which you cannot escape until you transform it. And here lies the most disturbing part. If you do not become conscious of the shadow, it will keep guiding every step you take. Think for a moment. The person who hurt you the most, what do they awaken in you? Fragility? Anger? Abandonment? Could it be that this exact point, fragile, hidden, denied, is what you refuse to see in yourself? And because you do not face it, you project it outward, in the form of a partner? Nietzsche would not tell you to run. He would tell you to face it, to embrace what is hidden until nothing remains to control you in secret. Only then can the cycle be broken. But this is not a simple task. It is easier to blame the other than to admit that every repetition is also your responsibility. Easier to say they hurt me than to confess, I put myself here again. The great question is, how long will you go on fighting monsters outside, without realizing that the true battlefield is within you? And here another dilemma begins. The weight of each choice, the yes and the no, that define whether you remain imprisoned or finally set yourself free. Nietzsche spoke of the power of saying yes to life. A deep yes that embraces every joy and every pain as inseparable parts of existence. But hidden within that lies a risk. When you mistake acceptance for submission, how many times have you said yes to someone, believing it was love, when in truth it was only fear of losing them? How many times have you swallowed words, suffocated desires, erased your own will, just to keep someone by your side? Saying yes like that is not strength. It is surrender. It is allowing your life to be written by someone else's hand. And every time you accept what diminishes you, you are betraying what Nietzsche called the will to power, your capacity to affirm yourself, to create, to become stronger. But then comes the doubt. What if saying no is the truest way of saying yes? Think about it. When you refuse to accept the love that destroys you, you are not rejecting life. You are affirming a greater life. You are saying yes to yourself, to your dignity, to your strength. The problem is that no is heavy. It brings silence. It brings loneliness. It brings the emptiness that frightens you more than the familiar pain. That is why, so often, you prefer to say yes to the poison instead of facing the hunger. Nietzsche would ask, what kind of yes are you saying? The one that expands, or the one that shrinks? The one that creates, or the one that imprisons? The eternal return whispers here once more. Imagine living eternally the same yes that imprisons you. The same cycle of silence, of shrinking, of fading away. Could you endure that eternity? Or is it time, at last, to dare to say no to what consumes you, and yes to what might set you free? Because the next step is decisive. It is not only about refusing repetition. It is about having the courage to break the cycle. For Nietzsche, the eternal return is not merely punishment. It is an invitation, a test to see if you have the courage to transform what insists on repeating. But breaking the cycle is never simple. Because, deep down, you have grown accustomed to the pain. It has become familiar. And to abandon the familiar, even when it is a prison, demands crossing into the unknown. Have you felt that fear? The fear of leaving a destructive relationship and asking yourself, what if I never find anything better? That thought is the strongest chain that binds you. It is not the other who keeps you captive. It is you who does not dare to release the shackles. Nietzsche would call this the creation of new values. Because when you break the cycle, you are not only leaving someone behind, you are rebuilding yourself. You are rewriting the way you see love, pain, and even your own identity. But there is a price. To break free means burning the bridge that always leads you back to the same place. It is like crossing a river knowing there is no way to return. Are you willing to do that? The temptation to go back is always strong. The old love calls, the memories pull, loneliness threatens. But Nietzsche would say this is precisely the moment of true choice. To affirm life not as it was, but as it can be. And here lies the decisive point. Do you prefer to keep spinning inside the familiar circle, living the same pain, believing you are safe? Or do you prefer to walk through the fire and endure uncertainty, in order to finally create a different destiny? Breaking the cycle is not only about saying no to the other. It is about saying yes to a greater life, even if that choice hurts at first. And if you have the courage, the eternal return will cease to be a prison. It will become creation. Because instead of repeating, you will begin to invent. And it is at this point that an old story helps to bring light. The story of the lost traveler, trapped inside a circle of fire, who discovers that the only way out is to cross the flames. A traveler walks alone in the desert. The sun is merciless by day, and the cold cuts like a blade at night. He walks for hours, then days, but something strange happens. No matter how far he goes, he always returns to the same point. The landscape changes, but the center remains the same. It is as if he were trapped inside an invisible circle. Exhausted, he lies down on the sand and looks at the sky. 1,000 stars shine, but all seem to mock his helplessness. It is then that he notices, on the ground before him lies a circle of fire. Flames dance like living shadows, forming an incandescent barrier. At first, he recoils. The fire seems to announce destruction. But with time, he realizes it's something disturbing. That circle is the boundary of his world. As long as he does not cross it, he will keep walking in endless loops, repeating the same journey. His heart races. Fear whispers, "Stay where you are. Better the desert you know than the flames that may consume you." But another voice, deeper, echoes within him. What if the only way out lies beyond the fire? The traveler hesitates. He remembers all the times he believed he was moving forward, yet ended up in the same place. He remembers the pain of each fall, the hope of each new beginning, the suffocating repetition. And then he understands. To remain there is to accept the eternal return as a prison. He takes a deep breath, faces the flames, and takes a step. The heat surrounds him. Fear gnaws at him. But as he passes through, he discovers that the fire does not destroy him. It transforms him. On the other side, there is silence. There is emptiness. There is freedom. Nietzsche would say this is the fate of those who dare to create, to endure the crossing, to accept the risk, in order to finally break the cycle. Because no desert becomes a true path until you find the courage to walk through the fire that defines it. And the question that remains is, will you keep wandering in circles, or will you dare to walk through your own fire? The eternal return of loves that wound is not just some distant theory. It is your life being tested every single day. Every choice you make, every person you allow in, every yes and every no, all of it comes back, endlessly and silently. Nietzsche did not see this as punishment, but as an opportunity, a chance to look at yourself and ask, if I had to relive this love for eternity, could I endure it? If the answer is no, then the moment for transformation is now. You can keep wandering in circles, reliving the same pain, like the traveler trapped in the desert. Or you can gather the courage to walk through the fire, to accept uncertainty, and to create something that never existed before. The risk is great, but so is the freedom. This channel exists for that, to shed light on the shadows that hold you, to reveal the cycles you repeat, and to show you that the way out is always beyond what frightens you. Subscribe now, share this video, and stay with us on this crossing. Because only together can we see what, alone, you often cannot. And never forget, what you repeat, you feed. What you dare to transform, you set free. We'll see each other in the shadows of the next hidden truth.